Hello everyone, this is Mrs. Blackband, and today we're going to be looking at the poem Mother Any Distance by Simon Armitage. Our learning objective for the lesson is to explore how the poets present the strength of bonds between parents and children. Our new versatile vocabulary today was dogmatic, meaning to give your opinions in a strong manner, and malleable, meaning to be altered or influenced. Other versatile vocabulary we could use today are chaos and order, permanent and ephemeral, perpetual and intermittent, and tangible and intangible. Pause and make sure you have those down before we start. So for our first read of the poem, we're just going to make sure we understand it. Mother Any Distance by Simon Armitage. Mother, any distance greater than a single span requires a second pair of hands. You come to help me measure windows, pelmets, doors, the acres of the walls, the prairies of the floors. You at the zero end, me with the spool of tape, recording length, reporting meters, centimeters, back to base. Then leaving up the stairs, the line still feeding out, unreeling years between us. Anchor, kite. I spacewalk through the empty bedrooms, climb the ladder to the loft, to breaking point, where something has to give. 2 floors below, your fingertips still pinch the last 1/100th of an inch. I reach towards a hatch that opens on an endless sky, to fall or fly. Now on your second reading, you should annotate each stanza with what is the big idea. Pause now and have a go at this. Now I'm going to complete a second reading. Mother, any distance greater than a single span requires a second pair of hands. You come to help me measure windows, pelmets, doors, the acres of the walls, the prairies of the floors. You at the zero end, me with the spool of tape, recording length, reporting meters, centimeters, back to base. Then leaving up the stairs, the line still feeding out, unreeling years between us. Anchor, kite. I spacewalk through the empty bedrooms, climb the ladder to the loft, to breaking point, where something has to give. 2 floors below, your fingertips still pinch the last 1/100th of an inch. I reach towards a hatch that opens on an endless sky, to fall or fly. In the first stanza, the narrator acknowledges his need for his parent. In the second stanza, the narrator describes the roles of parents and children within their relationship. Finally, the third stanza describes the inevitable separation and need for independence that comes between a parent and child over time. Next, we need to think about the speaker and the tone of the poem. It's clear from the title and the poem itself that the narrator is a young adult, moving away from their mother and probably their family home for the first time. The language reveals 3 emotions to the tone of the poem. A resigned feeling, the move has to happen. A determined feeling, he wants to do well away from home. And a grateful feeling, he appreciates everything that his mother has done for him. We're going to focus on 4 quotations from the poem to explore the bond between the mother and son. They're highlighted here for you, and if you're feeling particularly confident, pause now and have a go at this analysis yourself. We're going to continue through each quotation at a time and analyse as we go. The first quotation we're going to analyse is the couplet that opens the poem. Mother, any distance greater than a single span requires a second pair of hands. My first question is about the meaning of that phrase as a whole. What is his mother? What is the narrator asking his mother for? Why might he need a second pair of hands? Now I'd like you to finish these sentences. The relationship sounds tangible because The narrator doesn't sound dogmatic, and the bond between mother and child seems permanent, so. Next we're going to focus in on the phrase a single span. Now a span is the distance between your thumb and your last finger, as demonstrated by my very poor drawing here. But what kind of distance is a span? Then I'd like you to give me 2 situations where you might use hand spans as a measurement. And then I'd like you to give me 2 ways this presents the narrator's character because he's using hand spans. Pause now to complete this analysis of the first quotation. The second quotation is by far my favourite from the poem, and it's from the second stanza. Anchor, kite. So much can be said about just these 2 words. We're going to focus a word at a time and finish some sentences. An anchor is. The important features of an anchor are. For a boat, an anchor is. And then you're going to give me 2 qualities of an anchor. Next we're going to do the same for a kite. So finish the sentences. A kite is. The important features of a kite are. For a child, a kite is. And 2 qualities of a kite. Then I'd like you to answer the question, what is the difference between an anchor and a kite? If we focus on the line as a whole, and bearing in mind that the poem is about a parent and child relationship, in this metaphor, who is the anchor and who is the kite? I'd like you to give me 2 reasons for your answer. Now, if the mother is the anchor, what does this mean she does for her child? If the son is the kite, what does this mean he's able to do? Finish these sentences. The mother offers the child perpetual support because. The child is in intermittent danger, but. The parent and child bond creates order to chaos, so. Pause now to complete this analysis of our second quotation. As a small extension, we're going to think about the kite in more depth. A kite has a string that connects it to the person using it. What does this literally do for the person holding it? This string between a kite and its owner could be a further metaphor for the mother and child bond. What link is the same between a mother and child as the kite and its owner? What does the string provide for the kite? And how is this similar to the parent and child bond? These additional ideas are supported by another quotation from the second stanza. You at the 0 end, me with the spool of tape. How does this metaphor present their bond? How does this symbolise growing up with a strong parental bond? And together, how do these 2 quotations make the parent and child bond seem malleable? Our final two quotations are from the third stanza of the poem. The first of these is "I spacewalk through the empty bedrooms." 3 questions for you to answer. What is the milestone event that has happened for the narrator? What is he doing? And where is his mother? Now, from this quotation, it is the verb choice that is the most interesting. And again, I have a fairly interesting drawing for you to remember. What I'd like from you are 2 movements suggested by this verb, plus 2 feelings associated with such movement. Finally, I'd like you to finish these 2 sentences. Being in space allows the narrator, and being in space makes him feel. Thinking a little bit deeper and using our versatile vocabulary, finish these sentences. Following this event, the mother's support is intangible because his mother's presence is ephemeral, but thinking back to our objective, what has changed between the parent and child relationship? How have the narrator's feelings changed? Finish this sentence. The changes to the narrator's relationship with his mother are tangible because, but they are also intangible, so. Pause now and finish the annotations and analysis of the third quotation. Our final quotation is the last lines of the poem. Opens on an endless sky to fall or fly. This line finishes the poem non-literally. It's a metaphor for the narrator's future. But what could happen? I'd like you to finish the sentences. The narrator is not dogmatic about the future because he believes the future is malleable, so, but his bond with his mother may affect his future because. We're going to zoom in within this line a little further and we're going to think about the phrase an endless sky. This too could be called a metaphor for the chaos of adulthood. So finish the sentence. A metaphor for adult future because it could be chaos, but the young narrator is vulnerable, so the permanent bond to his mother is important because he could fall, but he could fly, so. As a small extension, we could zoom in even further on the adjective endless here in the quotation and juxtapose it or compare it to the use of single at the beginning in the phrase single span. Answer these questions. What has literally changed between the mother and son? What metaphorically has changed within their bond? And what symbolically has changed for the narrator? Pause now and make sure your analysis and annotations of the final quotation are complete. The last thing for us to consider was the focus of our learning objective at the beginning of the lesson, and that was the strength of bonds between parents and children. We're going to finish a series of sentences. The poem suggests the bond is malleable because. The poem suggests the bond is malleable, but. The poem suggests the bond is malleable, so. The narrator is dogmatic about the permanency of the bond because. The narrator is dogmatic about the permanency of the bond, but. And the narrator is dogmatic about the permanency of the bond, so. Once you have all your annotations, all your answers and all your notes complete, you're going to return to your teacher and get the final instructions for your post-learning quiz.